I'm also going to talk to you about using charcoal. There are a couple of things I can help you with. I'm going to see if I can put this on some kind of a tripod so it'll quit jiggling for you, so hang on for a second. Okay, that's a little bit better, I think. The real thing I want you to do is be able to see the drawing as I work with charcoal a little bit and maybe give some of you guys an idea. So I'm going to put it on standby, move around, and get it set up on the drawing board. Okay, I'm going to try to get some of this going for you. Compressed charcoal, first of all, I don't know if you can see that or not because I'm not behind the camera. I've also got a setup here with some, just a gum eraser. This is all I had handy. And a paper towel, and I'll show you what I'm doing with that. Basically what I'm doing with that is I'm giving myself a pool of this charcoal, and then what I can do is pick that up with my paper towel, and I can put this anywhere I want to. So I'm going to try to start out with an egg, you know, somewhere in here. Eggs for a little bit, but not for long, okay? Because I'll come back and do it in a minute. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is give myself the shape of one of those eggs in there. And the other egg kind of comes over here. What I always do when I draw is I like to give myself a start on where the dark things are. And as you can tell, knowing what charcoal does, I know not to go right in there with hard lines right at first. Okay, so I've got something like this going on over here. I'm hoping you guys can see it. It's pretty light, I'm sure. I've got two little eggs going up, and then I've got some kind of darkness here. Maybe it's time for me to just bite the bullet and go in here and give you a better idea. I'm afraid you can't see it if I don't. Okay, so I've got kind of a dark area here where an egg is. That's just the shadow on the egg. And then another kind of dark. You see, I'm avoiding going in and making lines, outlining those. I'm trying to go by the dark so I can get those shadings right, because that's the point of this, like I said to you earlier. Now, I'm also looking at the relative position of white. And what I'm seeing is, this is the shadow where that plate is, somewhere probably like that. Now, in addition to this great egg that's going to be going on here, I've also got a shadow that comes right underneath it. Now, you can't see that now, but in a minute I'll show you what I'm talking about, okay? So I'm starting off, this is kind of where I'm going with that. And if you think, my gosh, that's just an absolute mess, well, you're pretty close to right. Let's see if I can show you. See, I'm doing this area and that area, and I'm putting that in and this right here. Now, we're way on top of what it is. Basically, what I'm doing back here is going back in on that. This is kind of what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this dark, which I told you about, this dark where the shadow under the egg is, just a little bit there. A lot more of this shadow in here. And then I'm seeing the proportion. If my egg is over, if that's that second egg and that's about the position, I've got at least about another half an egg, a span here, and a half about over here to the edge of that plate. So that means that shadow of the plate, now this isn't the plate, but this is that dark under it, that shadow of the plate goes way over here. Then I've got the lip, and I've got to keep that ellipse about right. It kind of comes up to about that point. And then I don't see much of it over here. The shadow over here is, you're just going to see a little bit here, and then that shadow comes underneath it. Okay, now I don't think I've done a lot of damage there. I think I've given myself enough room that I can go back in and kind of mess with it and get where I want to go. But you see what I'm doing to get those blends in? I'm taking this right here. Now this is the worst paper you could possibly use. This is just newsprint, right? And it's very unforgiving. So if I can get anything close to a drawing out of this, then you guys on good paper ought to be doing really well, okay? That kind of gives me an idea. I'm going to play around with the negative space of this plate just to help me out, and I'm going with my eraser, if you can see me do that, just to help me out so I'll have a better feel for how that plate goes, getting a kind of a hard edge. Now from where I am, this shape is really a lot different in here too. I'm getting really more of a nice kind of like that shape right there. Like when I talk, it's hard to talk and draw, isn't it? And then I'm going to go pick this up because that comes around a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit more of a hard edge. This edge is going to come on around, and if I would bring, where's my charcoal? If I would bring this edge down here from the egg like that, then it would be a little easier to see. That's the shadow of, this is a, I also tried to look for a plate that I could get some contrast on. Okay, so I'm going to have to do some serious work on this to make that happen. If I can pull that edge in like that, okay? And then down here, I don't see that, but I do see that shadow under the plate. That shadow makes a nice kind of, nice curving. See, I'm using this section. I'm not using, still I'm avoiding doing this kind of thing because that's just too hard to change. But if I use just the edge of the charcoal like that, then I ought to be able to get a nice kind of rounded feel down in there. That's the shadow of my plate, okay? Now, I'm not going to do a lot of detail in the shadow. I'm just trying to give you the dark right now. But if I were doing this probably in something that was a little easier to work with, like graphite, I could go in and do some nice reflections. But for what I'm trying to do now, basically I'm just going to try to give you the idea of where you need to go. Now I'm looking at negative spaces over here, seeing if I can get the shadow of that egg to go in about like that. That's going to be much darker. But what it's doing is it's describing the shape of the base of that egg, you see. I'm letting that kind of come in like that. This is a bit more of a curve. I'll shape that with my eraser in a minute. And I'm letting that kind of swing over like it does. I didn't do it as much as I should have. So I can go back and maybe play with that a little bit. Maybe put that back in, okay? Now, this egg right here, that suddenly is not an egg at all, but just seems to be a black mark. This egg has a nice kind of space. This kind of comes over like that. And underneath, reflection of that plate, underneath I'm going to get a nice kind of solid like that. Now that probably, I'm going to use my eraser to help me out so I'll get the feeling of where that shape is. This egg itself is going to happen somewhere up here like that, okay? A bit more like that, and then it kind of swings over like that. All right, so now you're beginning to get, you see how light I'm being with this, how very tentative. And that's the way I work with charcoal, because once you're in there and you've done something, you know, you're kind of locked in. You can't do much about that. This way I can make lots of adjustments, and that's fine. At this point, that's exactly what I want, lots of adjustments. Now, I may come back in and embellish, make some things a little bit darker. I see that shape right in there that I want to save, so I'm going to do that. And then when I do that, I'm going to come back in, and I'm avoiding the camera because I didn't really, you know, get all fixed up for this. You know how those of us who are in movies have to be real careful about our images. I'm kidding, all right. Okay, so I'm trying to get the edge of that plate as it comes around, and then I'm going to want the same edge over here. I want to make sure they kind of hit about the same place, and that'll come this way, describing that ellipse again on that side. Now then, the shadow drops down. It's a little bit dark, and then right on the edge, right underneath that rim, wow, it gets really dark right in here. And again, I'm just using the edge of my charcoal, not trying to make a line, trying to make a shape. That helps you understand, okay? And there's some stuff I need to fool with in this to make it work. Okay, that's a little bit better. You begin to get a sense, I think, of where that plate is. Again, I'm using it. Now, if you have a chamois, and I don't have one with me, but I keep saying you're welcome to use a paper towel. It works just fine. What you want to avoid is using your fingers, even though you make a nice smudge. Mainly because, assuming this is going to be a really great drawing, if you use your fingers, then you're going to leave a little smudge of oil, and that will also contribute to the demise of your drawing. And I'm going to play with that just a bit, but not a whole lot. Okay. Now you get the feeling of where that egg is going to happen, I hope. And in a few minutes, I hope I'll be able to do some more for you in making that egg happen. Now, the shadow here is going to make it happen as it comes along. And up here, that egg... Well, I'm really sorry that the camera ran out right then. There'll be another clip and I'll pick it up here, but this is where I got with that drawing. Thanks, and pick up the other.